Hi there, I'm Nancy Nash with Starfish Strength. Today, I want to teach you a healthier baked bean recipe that is sure to be a crowd pleaser. So this recipe is going to start the night before, or 8 to 10 hours before you actually want your baked beans. So I'm going to start by soaking my beans overnight. So I want to rinse them thoroughly and make sure I remove any beans that, look a little off color or any rocks that may have made their way into the bean bag. That does happen sometimes. So I would actually recommend rinsing them a couple times because dirt actually does tend to get caught up. Beans grow in the ground, so it's very fair, right? So just make sure you rinse your beans thoroughly. And we're going to soak them for 8 to 10 hours. This is going to come into play later because depending on how long you've soaked your beans, that will kind of impact the cooking time, the amount of time that it's going to take them to absorb the liquid. So if possible, during that 8 to 10 hours, try to change the water out a couple times. So this is actually to remove the substance that makes you kind of gassy after you eat beans. So everyone will be a little bit better off if you do fit in a couple extra rinses. So I'm going to strain my beans and set them to the side, and then I'm going to preheat my oven to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, I'm going to cut up my onion and my jalapenos. So cutting my onion, I like to slice off the ends, peel off the skin, cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut it into, maybe 1/4 inch slices. You could slice it even finer if you like, and then dice it up pretty finely. It's going to get thoroughly cooked in this recipe, but this is, kind of like a texture thing. If you like finer texture, you want to cut this a little bit finer. Handling your jalapenos, I definitely recommend using some food safe gloves if you have them. I'm going to cut off the tops of my jalapenos and pop out the stems and as much of the seed part as I can. And then I'm going to slice them thinly and then dice them up. And I'm going to dice the jalapenos a lot finer than my onion. Not only is it, kind of a stronger flavor to get a spicy jalapeno in these beans, but there's less of them to go around. So I want to make sure that we get this thoroughly incorporated. So once your onions and jalapenos are diced to your satisfaction, go ahead and set them aside in a bowl. So next, I'm going to slice up my turkey bacon. So I'm actually going to just stack the slices on top of one another to make this a little bit easier. I'm going to slice them lengthwise again into about 1/4 inch slices and then turn them and slice them again. So I get, these nice little square pieces. Again, everybody gets a little bit of bacon in their baked beans. So I'm going to use a large skillet. You could use a cast iron skillet if you have one. This is almost like the size of a wok, I would say. I'm going to spray it with nonstick spray, and then I'm going to turn it onto medium-high heat and add my turkey bacon. And I'm going to cook my turkey bacon for maybe 10 to 15 minutes till it starts to slightly brown. And I want to make sure that I'm stirring it every couple minutes or so. Now, depending on, how much juice your turkey bacon is releasing, I've noticed that brands really vary in, how juicy they are, if you will. You could choose to cover this if it seems like it's a little bit drier so that it starts to release some liquid. But if it's releasing a lot of liquid, you probably want to leave this uncovered. So once you notice that your turkey bacon looks a little bit browned, we're going to add in our onions and jalapenos and just kind of gently stir them in to combine. I am actually going to add my lid on top of this so that those onions really begin to sweat. Now, at this point, this is optional. I'm actually going to add a pork bone in here. This is going to give it some additional flavor. If you're a vegetarian and you used vegetable stock and you're skipping the turkey bacon in this, obviously, you're not going to want to do that. And this is still going to have great flavor. And then I'm going to come back every 3 minutes or so and just kind of continuously stir this until everything is looking kind of, evenly cooked. You'll notice the jalapenos have changed color a little bit just from that bright green. And then the onions start to become a little translucent, maybe even a little bit caramelized. Is very delicious for this recipe. So you can cook this a little bit longer if you like. Now, while my onions, jalapeno, and bacon are cooking, I'm going to mix up the tomato sauce. It's kind of going to be the base for our baked bean flavor. So into a medium bowl, I'm going to combine my can of tomato paste. I'm going to measure out my molasses. And then I'm going to measure out my brown sugar and just kind of lightly pack it. That's the best way to measure brown sugar. And then I'm going to measure my apple cider vinegar. And then we're going to add our spices. I'm going to add a tablespoon of ground garlic. I'm going to add a tablespoon of dried thyme. I'm going to add a teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper. And this is optional, but I'm also going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. So if your family really does not like heat in recipes, I grew up in one of those families, you can omit the cayenne pepper. You could substitute the jalapenos for poblanos, which are a little less spicy, or even for a green bell pepper, which will give you some flavor without any heat. So you get no judgment from me. I know we all have different heat preferences. So I'm just going to give my tomato paste sauce a good mix. It's going to be pretty thick at this point, but that's okay. We just want to make sure that every ingredient is getting evenly dispersed. So now I'm going to slowly add in my stock and stir this with, either a spatula or a whisk so that I'm really getting all those bits of tomato, molasses, brown sugar, and spices incorporated into one sauce. We're not leaving any flavor bits behind. So once your onion, pepper, and bacon mixture are cooked to your satisfaction, go ahead and shut off the heat and set them to the side. So for this recipe, you could use a really deep 9x13 pan, but I'm actually using an even bigger pan that's a bit shallower. It's going to cook for a pretty long time, so it should work out, regardless of your pan size. You just want to make sure that you've got an inch gap or so between your liquid and the top of your pan. So I'm going to first add my beans into my pan. Then I'm going to add my onion, pepper, and bacon mixture on top. And then I'm going to slowly pour my tomato sauce mixed with the stock on top and just give everything a good stir so that it looks like, it's pretty evenly dispersed. Now we're going to cover our pan thoroughly with foil and I'm going to put it in the oven, and I'm not really going to touch it until I think it's close to done. So your baking time is going to be between 6 and 8 hours. So I would definitely come back and check these at 6 hours. But again, it depends on how long you soaked them. So I soaked my beans for about 10 hours and then I wound up baking them for about 6 hours. Sometimes I wound up with baked beans that are a little liquidy. If you notice, that your beans are getting close to done, but they're not quite there and it is looking a little bit liquidy, you could also take the foil off the pan and bake it for that last hour uncovered. But the goal as far as texture is that the beans are just a little bit beyond al dente so that they're not mushy, just beyond that to the tooth texture. And I will also throw out there that you can do this in a smoker as well. So sometimes we have smoked these for 2 hours and then moved them to the oven while we were using the smoker for other things. So if you're doing a big barbecue, that's another option. So once you feel that your beans are sufficiently done, go ahead and let them cool uncovered for 10, maybe even 20 minutes before you taste them, because it is going to take a little bit of time for that sauce to cool down. No burnt tongues. So let's go ahead and give it a taste. So you definitely get that, sweetness from the molasses and the brown sugar, kind of immediately, but you also get that, subtle hint of apple cider vinegar in there. And I love just the touch of heat. To me, it tastes like a touch of heat from the jalapeno and the cayenne pepper. A couple of days after this is cooked, those flavors really have come together. And, if it seemed kind of spicy to you the first day, it's probably really going to seem a lot more subtle after a couple days. Now, I can still, taste the turkey bacon. I can still taste everything separately. I like that. I actually really enjoy recipes where you can kind of taste the complexity of things. I can't pick out the time specifically, but I can taste it playing its role. I am a huge fan of garlic, but I've definitely overdone it in certain recipes. Here, it's just, a backup singer. It's just playing its role. I think that the molasses in this recipe is part of what makes it really special. I hope you enjoy this combination as much as I do. Thanks so much for making time to cook with me today. I hope you feel set up with a new healthy recipe to bring to your next family gathering or barbecue. If you're looking for more healthy recipes, workouts, or other exercise and healthy lifestyle tips, please check out the rest of my YouTube channel. And if you need need some help putting together your nutrition plan and workout program to reach your goals, please reach out to me in the link in the description. In the meantime, I look forward to continuing this journey with you, and I'll see you in the next video. Sit. So first we're gonna try banana. Can I try some? What do you think? You have to stay over here, Max. Come here. Sweet. Overall, it was good. Yeah, even with the cough. Good job. Squishy. We have some crunchy baby carrots. Do you want your own carrot? No, you have to stay over here. You don't want the carrot? So Max doesn't want his carrot today. He does like them sometimes, but he doesn't always like them like this. He likes them cooked and he likes them shredded. So sometimes we only like things a certain way, and that's okay too, right? Thank you for trying it.